Folks, back in 2013, I moved into my off-grid cabin full time. I left my wife back at home in town 4.5 hours away. And that year, I lived through one of the coldest winters I'd seen in decades, including one stretch where I came back from visiting my wife over Christmas and every single pipe at the cabin was frozen. Everything was frozen. It was 22 below zero. And well, you can imagine the challenge that posed. However, I survived all of it, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Then, almost 11 years later, in January of 2024, I saw a weather forecast at the cabin showing temperatures overnight as low as 15 below zero. So I drove up in my Jeep with the chains on to save my $3,600 worth of LifeBoat 4 batteries. So Tim and I got up there and moved those 80-pound batteries from my porch in the dark with lanterns. I had no power running to my back room, which was heated, that I could save the batteries in. So after almost 16 years of running my off-grid cabin, I know exactly what it can do and exactly where it fails. Now let me walk you through the setup because context matters here. I started building my cabin back in 2009, and in 2010, I built my off-grid system. Solar panels, battery, charge controller, charger, all that kind of stuff. Then in 2013, I moved into the cabin full-time, no longer a weekend warrior. I was working a job nearby, and so I spent every night in my cabin and weekends too, though occasionally I would spend a weekend down south where my wife was because, you want to see your wife once in a while, right? Now, by this time, I had converted my entire water system to be completely off-grid. Solar panels, MPPT solar pump controller, float valve in the cistern with a frost-free spigot just outside the cabin as a just in case if you need water in the winter. And that system's been running pretty much flawlessly since 2013. Although I'm going to say that the rats have chewed the wires a few times, and come to think of it, I guess that part's not flawless, but otherwise it runs great, and if I would just put those wires in something the rats couldn't chew through, then it would absolutely be flawless. So I guess I should change that. That system's almost run flawlessly since 2013. All right, let's move on. Now, I also built a super insulated back room for my composting toilet, as well as the water that's coming into the cabin and my hot water heater. And I had planned eventually to put power in there as well. And I'll tell you right now, folks, that back room has saved me twice. I'm not a full-timer anymore. I've got a house in town, but I do spend typically every other weekend, no less than 5 to 6 days a month at the cabin. So I'm always there, and I was full-time for over a year. And that first winter taught me more about off-grid vulnerability than anything else that's happened since. So when we get to the part of what really goes down in a grid down scenario, I'm not guessing, folks. All right, so day one, the grid goes down. Here's the honest truth. Day one would be easy for most folks, including me. You wouldn't even feel it at all, really. My system runs the basics without blinking. LED lights, the refrigerator, recharging phones, running my internet, you name it, it runs it all, and I don't even think about it. It's a set and forget system. And my water pump works whenever I need it to. Even when the rats chew the cable so that the float valve doesn't work, I can always check the level in my cistern and turn the pump on and off manually, and it works just fine. And my cistern is 325 gallons, so I've always got plenty of water. Now, I've tested it all. And my typical power draw, from sundown to sunup anyway, is no more than about 3 kilowatt hours. In fact, it's usually a little bit less. But with almost 10 kilowatts of backup power, I can run without sun at all for at least 3 times that length of time. The sun's going to come up though, and I do have a propane generator that I can charge everything back up with as well. I know my system, and I have to be honest with you right now, the only reason I run my generator is to exercise it. It's a simple cabin, not real fancy, very simple to operate. Now, days 2 through 7, I'm still doing well. If I've got good sun, my solar arrays are keeping up with my power consumption, maintaining my batteries. I don't even think about it. And that's where a lot of people say, see, off-grid's easy. And in the summer, with good sun angles, they're basically right. But here's where it gets interesting. What happens on day 4 if it's cloudy? Or day 5, 6, and 7 are all cloudy? Now, that battery reserve is keeping you going, but if you don't know exactly how much reserve you have and how fast you're draining it, you're flying blind. Here's where I'll tell you about a mistake I made that you don't want to make. And I made this one in the winter of 2013. I moved into the cabin full time. I was living there. working an hour away, coming home every night, backup propane heater, so when the wood stove goes out, I knew the cabin wasn't going to cool down too much. And I left over Christmas to go, well, visit my wife, see my family, do the Christmas thing, right? I left the propane heater running so it would keep the cabin at least 50 degrees, figuring that's going to keep all my pipes from freezing. And main thing, honestly, I'm thinking about all the canned goods in the cupboards and the refrigerators running and everything else. I just want to make sure things don't freeze while I'm gone. But it got down to 22 below zero. 22 below, folks. That's minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. In the rest of the world, that is minus 30 degrees Celsius. I came back to the cabin where every single pipe was frozen solid. My gray water drains and my P-traps were completely frozen. My water lines were all frozen and my sewage pipe was frozen. Everything frozen. The cabin interior temperature was still close to 50 degrees. I think it was about 45 degrees, but it was still doing pretty well. But that 22 degrees below zero outside froze everything, folks. Now, did I panic? No. But I want to be honest about what the next few months look like, because this is exactly what a long-term grid down situation could look like for a lot of people. First thing, I had to warm the cabin up to thaw out all of my water lines and shut the water off to my hot water heater, which I had burst the pipes in and it started leaking, so we didn't want a big mess in the back room. Then I pulled the P-traps from underneath my sinks. Why? Well, they were frozen, but there was no way to thaw out the main gray water line, so I wasn't going to be able to have any drains until everything could thaw out well into the spring. So that led me to put a 5-gallon bucket underneath my kitchen sink that I could then use as a drain and just toss it outside down the hill. But there was going to be no drains, not until May. And this is January. And of course, then I put a 2-gallon pot on the stove to have hot water and shut off the water to the cabin altogether because I figured there's no point in risking another freeze like that if I'm gone. And I would use my frost-free outside to fill up a 7-gallon water jug that I would put on the counter and use that as my running water. Now that meant no showers, no actual regular running water. Hot water only as long as the wood stove's running. Now the sewage pipe, I put heat tape on the sewage pipe and used that while running my generator because at that time I had flooded lead acid batteries and I didn't want them to drain too much because that can damage them. One thing you don't want is a frozen sewage pipe when it's 22 below zero because A, you got to be trekking out to the outhouse which isn't heated, and B, when it starts to thaw, if you haven't made sure it can clear the correct way, well, the smell comes the way you don't want it to. Just ask me how I know. It's not pretty, folks. And by the way, I didn't have a working shower until May of that year. Now that meant that when I went into work, I would shave at work. So I'd just go in early and shave at work. And for showers, I had a gym membership, so I would just take a shower after working out in the gym. Now that worked pretty well, though, you know, some mornings I'd get into work, shave, wash my hair in the sink in the bathroom. And all the guys at work thought I was crazy, actually. Now, does that sound rough? Well, it was. But did I lose power? No, not at all. My solar power ran the whole time. My lights always came on, the fridge ran, I could charge my phone, and back in those days, I even had satellite TV and satellite internet, and I could run both of those. I had no problem at all, and my well pump continued to run as well, so I always had water. Never an issue with my off-grid power systems. What I lost was my gray water system, the sewage, the hot water heater. I had to replace it. And that's the real lesson here, folks. In a true grid down scenario, it's not always the electricity that gets you. It's the stuff you forgot to winterize. It's the gray water main line that you thought would be fine in, say, 20 below zero temperatures, but never thought about the fact that what happens if there's no snow cover over it. So what would I do differently? Well, for one, I would put heat tape on my gray water main line. Believe it or not, that one winter taught me more about off-grid resilience than probably anything else in the last 16 years. And it's exactly the kind of thing that would happen to a lot of people in a real long-term grid down scenario. Not because the power failed, but because they hadn't stress tested everything. And folks, if this is useful to you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. Helps the channel out and I really appreciate it. So let's get to the real question, long-term. After that first month, how long would I actually last? And I'm going to tell you the truth, indefinitely, folks, with good management. But here's what management actually means. It means that you audit your power consumption ruthlessly. You know exactly what you're running and what you're not. You prioritize heating and water first and everything else secondary. I heat with wood. That's not a coincidence, folks. That's a decision I made specifically because I never want to depend on electricity or, for that matter, propane for heat. And I'm in a forest. I'll always be able to get firewood. If the power disappears tomorrow, my wood stove will keep running. Now, my well pump does run on electricity, and that is a vulnerability. However, I have an EMP shield to protect it from at least lightning and EMPs, which could just happen from solar flares. So I'm less concerned about that, but I also have a stream down below me. I have other means of getting water. The honest answer, folks, is that a well-designed, well-managed off-grid system can handle a long-term grid outage. But most people, even people who think they're prepared, have not stress-tested their system. They've never run it for a month straight on purpose to find out where their weak points are, let alone a year or two. I have, and that's exactly how I found mine. So here's the takeaway, folks. If you're building or improving an off-grid system with grid-down resilience in mind, here's what I'd tell you based on the last 16 years. First, size your solar for winter, not summer. If you watch my videos, you know that I always say I like to get my system fully charged within 2 hours after using it all night long. That's because I know I'm not likely to get more than 2 hours of good charging in the middle of winter. Now, this is where a lot of people get burned. And when I first sized my system back in 2010, I actually kind of built it for summer use. I wasn't really thinking of long-term grid down outage situations. And when I moved into the cabin, I was running my generator every day, pretty much twice a day, especially if I wanted to actually use much in the way of power. And for 7 years, I pretty much had to live with that, despite adding more batteries over that period of time. Until 2017, when I added my second solar array. That made a lot of difference. I had much more usable power. But even then, it wasn't until I went to lithium iron phosphate batteries that I kept in my heated back room that things really changed. I don't even need to run my generator today. It would take an awful long time with no solar for me to have to run my generator. And I know how to manage that. So don't make that mistake. Don't size your system too small. Second, 2 is 1, 1 is none. I've got layered storage, permanent battery bank, plus portable power stations. If one fails, I've got the other. And that's not paranoia, that's just how the real world works. Third, know your actual numbers, not your theoretical numbers. Your actual daily consumption under a real load. I test everything with a watt meter. That's why I can tell you exactly what each of my electronic pieces of equipment consumes in a given day. Fourth, don't depend on electricity for heat or propane. A wood stove isn't glamorous. It can be pretty dirty and dusty. But in a long-term grid-down situation, it's probably going to be the most important thing that you have. And fifth, this comes straight from the winter of 2013 and perhaps 2024, winterize everything before you go into winter. Make sure your gray water lines are protected. Make sure your sewage is protected. Make sure everything is ready to go before you get into winter. And I will tell you this, get the skirts around your cabin, which I did do finally last year with a new foundation, so I have a lot less trouble there. Procrastination can get you, folks. It certainly got me. So there you have it, folks. I hope that helps you out. And if it did, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all my members for supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. Meanwhile, folks, I'm going to throw another video right over here for you to check out. Thanks again for watching. Y'all have a great day. The old Jarhead out.